Last week we began a series looking at personal development for kids. Usually when we talk personal development, tunatafutaga watu wazima wanaenda elimu ya gubaru kujisaidia wakuwe watu wazuri zaidi. But I was thinking, okay, some of these things, can we instill them in our kids so that by the time they become adults, it's part of them. They have been taught. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. So today we are talking about positive mindset. How do we develop a positive mindset in our children? Is that even important? At what point do we begin? I've got two amazing guests in studio with me this morning. First and foremost, we have a medical doctor, certified life and relationship coach. This is Dr. Antonia Wangoi. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
So when you heal them, you coach their life as well?
Absolutely.
Full package?
Full package.
Yeah, that's nice. It's good to have you. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We also have a counseling psychologist, lecturer at Daystar, and African Nazarene, and also husband and father. This is Joseph Nginya. How are you doing?
Good.
Karibu sana.
Thank you, Asante.
Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Positive mindset. I was just wondering, it sounds like such a complex thing. At what point do you even begin to teach your children about a positive mindset? Do they even understand what a positive mindset is?
Well, thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I must admit, when I saw the title of the topic, I too had to really think about it when from an adult perspective.
Yeah.
So when you talk about positive mindset in a child, we are talking about instilling values and certain things in their lives from as early as they can understand. That's what I think is important to know. Some children develop much earlier than others. Others take a bit of time. Others are differently abled. So developing this positive mindset is instilling those values and issues and making them understand positive things from an early age, as early as they can understand. It's never too early.
It's never too early.
It's never too early.
Can I instill a positive mindset in my child if me mwenyewe siko positive? Does it begin with the child or with me?
First of all, it's good to understand that a positive mindset is teaching this child to have an optimistic view of the world, perceiving the world from a positive vibration.
Yeah.
The opposite is this child perceiving the world from a very pessimistic worldview, and considering that children learn through a process called social learning, which is observing what is going on, then it may be a challenge for you if you have a negative perception of life to teach your child to have a positive mindset in life. So it has to start with you. Unfortunately, statistics have consistently shown that a significant majority of us grew up in dysfunctional homes where instead of us being taught like most of the time, Pastor Okumu, you're going to find that when our parents were talking to us, especially those people who grew up in dysfunctional homes, they would say the opposite of what they meant. For instance, if you're the firstborn in your family and your mother wanted you to watch over the children, instead of her telling you nicely, hey, Okumu, see, watch over the kids, you'd be told, mwekele mtoto kwa jiko, or your mother is busy.
Leo ucheze kabisa, ucheze urudi hapa usiku.
Yes, or you're busy, doc, washing your mother's cups, and then your mother hears them zikigongana. She will shout from wherever she is, vujeni zote, hata zenye zitoka kwa bati mtoe mvuje. Your mother is rich by others. So it's raising children is one of those things that you can't delegate. So it has to start with you, because it's a monkey see, monkey do business.
That then becomes hard, because just from what you said, but you think about it, many of us are so negative in our speech, in our perception of life. We complain a lot about so many things. So how do we even change that? Because if we don't change it, then our children will pick that up and they magnify it.
That is absolutely true, Pastor Okumu. Like Joseph said, many of us grew up hearing the negative, and I think it has to be a deliberate effort from the side of the parent. You can't just wake up one day and think that your child will develop a positive mindset if you yourself as a parent have not tried to unlearn and relearn certain things that were there in your past. So we start from the parent who maybe might have been traumatized as a child because of the kind of speech, the kind of actions that they witnessed, and like Joseph said, it's a lot about social learning. So it's from the parent to unlearn and now relearn how to instill positive mindsets and positive outcomes in their child. But it's very difficult for a parent who is still hurting or who is still in pain to now become a very, I would say, be able to give these values to this child. So it starts with the parent, and the parent going maybe even through counseling. We have very many parents nowadays who go through counseling to try and forget, or to try and come to terms with, let me not say forget, but come to terms with the way that they were brought up. Yes.
Do negative people know they're negative? Because I'm thinking for that parent who may be listening to this conversation, and they're thinking, yeah, that's true, but do we know we are negative, or do we assume we are okay? And yet, how we perceive life, how we handle people, the conversations we keep getting into, the things we say about other people, because those are the things that our children are seeing and picking. Would we know if we are?
Human beings are products of their socialization.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we do is going to be based on what was inculcated in us because of the process of socialization. Most of us do not. So you're likely going to view life from the lens that you grew up in.
You grew up in, yes.
So there are some things that become so normalized. Like sometimes you grow up in settings where emotional unavailability becomes normalized. You grow up in a setting where the inability to express your feelings and emotions becomes normalized. So there are some things that become normalized in the process of growing up. It becomes so live in us that you actually do not know that you have these struggles, and sometimes it takes someone maybe who is very candid with you to point out some of these things. And I think it's important to listen, because if people keep on telling you like you look like a horse and you're consistently denying, I think at some point you need to listen, because maybe you have hair stashed out of your mouth, and maybe you have a tail that you're wagging.
Yes.
and sometimes the same children we are trying to bring up with this positive mindset, they can actually be very good teachers. They can actually be able to point out some of the things that we are struggling with, if we are teachable enough. But the question is, are we teachable?
You know, one of our listeners, I can't remember what we were talking about, sent in a text. And we're talking about, I think, raising our voices to our children or something like that. She said, one time my child looked at me and said, "Mom, what is this that is so hard that you can't explain to me so that I understand it? That you have to shout and make so much noise." This is a child who's less than 10 years old. And it leaves you thinking like, okay.
And children are very intelligent. I mean, especially children of nowadays, because of the amount of social media, the amount of exposure that they have. And a similar story I had a parent who came to me in tears saying that her child told her that she's mean. You know, when a child tells you you're mean, then you must be really mean. You know, so children really get to observe more than parents tend to realize. And I like what Joseph said. You know, if someone keeps telling you something over and over, then it will be good to really take interest and see, is it that I'm the one who is in denial, or is everyone just somehow against me? But like you are asking, do negative people know that they're negative? To a small extent, I believe they do. If you're honest enough with yourself, and if you, at the end of the day, sit down and kind of go through your day and think about the things that you've gone through and the interactions that you've had, then you find that you realize that there's this situation like that I could have handled better. I shouted at this petrol station attendant, for example, or I was very quick to say something a bit negative to my child or my wife, or so I think to some extent people do know, but now the process of change is what becomes very difficult. Many people don't want to change.
Very true.
Yeah.
So are there some techniques we can engage, some activities we can use to teach our children, how to just look at life from a positive perspective? Because looking at life from a negative perspective comes so naturally with everything that is around us. That one no one has to teach you. If we just leave you, that is what you will pick. So what can we do deliberately as parents?
There's this observation that was made by someone, and I believe it's very true, and this person said that children are born optimists. It's actually us, the adults, who clip their wings.
Okay.
Because, back to what we are talking about, we are products of our socialization. So what that means is that some of us who grew up in dysfunctional settings, then we are damaged.
Yeah.
And what we say is that damaged parents damage their children.
Yeah.
So it's actually back to what Doc was saying, that before you even purport to use these techniques that can help these children to adopt this positive mindset, and they are there, we can use them. So who is teaching these techniques? Because first of all, if you're the parent, or if I'm the parent who is seeking to inculcate this positive vibe in my son, then there are some things I have to unlearn.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
I have to unlearn the things that I picked that were normalized. In this dysfunctionality we are talking about, there are people who got traumatized. Again, we say that our brains are wired for connection. But what trauma does, and most of us have gone through trauma rewires them for protection.
Yes.
That is why when you're given feedback, the first thing you want to do is to defend yourself, to protect yourself, because you have this trauma you have carried from your past. So when Doc gives you some, some feedback, and she's coming from a good place. She's coming from a good place of wanting you to reform and become a better person. You become defensive. And even for Christians, what most of us do is that we even say that someone has been sent to attack us. So we take a religious
Don't
turn.
judge.
Do not judge.
Yes.
Or we even quote verses that no weapon that is fashioned against me is going to prosper.
Yes.
But we do not know that this is actually defenses as a result of where we are coming from. And especially if this child has been hurt. Because, what is the role of a parent? The role of a parent is to love your child unconditionally, to support them. And like you are loving them with the D's and the E's, the same way you would love them with the A's and the B's.
Yeah.
So if this child is hurt by the same person who is supposed to be protecting them, the pain runs so deep. So in adulthood, it becomes very difficult for these people to trust anyone because they are perceiving people from an attacking perspective because they were attacked. So if it's a parent who is seeking to inculcate these values, then like what Doctor was saying is that this person has to first of all go through the process of unlearning. Unlearning what? The negative vibe that this person picked. And then you have to be very intentional to unlearn these things, because some of them become so normalized per se that it becomes your default setting. And you don't realize it. You normalize it. Like it gets to a point where the abnormal becomes the normal.
Yeah.
So you have to unlearn. And then once you unlearn, you learn new things. Once you learn this now positive mindset, you can now be able to inculcate it in your child. But if you find that as a parent you're struggling, then that's why we have therapists and counselors. That's why we have life coaches who can actually be able to help in unpacking this trauma. Once the trauma is unpacked, then you can be able now to inculcate new vibes that can be able to help this person to go to the next level.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some specific skills that you can use. Of course, if it's a child, there's what you call play therapy, there's art therapy, where, for example, if you realize this child is coming from, let's say, a traumatized family or a family where there's trauma, a simple exercise like giving them a pencil and a paper and asking them to draw their family, and then giving this child crayons and asking this child to color the family, you'll be able to see, like, for example, if they draw themselves and you see everyone else is holding their hands and they are somewhere detached, that is communicating something. The colors they use to even color the pictures, you can pick where this child is, where they feel positioned in this family, and then you can now try to address things to address issues picking from what they've been able to express, because the other challenge we have with children is that they may not be able to have a candid conversation like us. So they express through play, they express through art, they express through other forms. Music can also be one of these things, those things that they can use to express.
It is Parenting Tuesday. And we are talking about how to instill a positive mindset in your children. Talking about family. Mmekunywa chai leo asubuhi ama mjakunywa chai? Gashai, as I like calling it. Eden tea. Finest garden tea. If you haven't tried it, I would highly recommend you try it this week. It's available countrywide in leading supermarkets. Price is just right. Comes to you in several flavors. Eden green tea, Eden purple tea, Eden ginger tea, Eden lemon tea, and Eden premium tea. If you're looking for that perfect cup of tea, then try Eden tea. You will not regret it. It's packed right at the source, Karirana Tea Estates in Limuru, ensuring the freshness of the taste, the color, the aroma. It is just perfect. So, my friend, check out the finest garden tea, Eden tea, at the supermarkets today, and get to enjoy some wonderful tea. It's Parenting Tuesday today. We are hanging out with Dr. Antonia, and Joseph is also here, counseling psychologist. We are looking at how to instill a positive attitude and a positive outlook to life, a positive mindset in your children. There's a question here. It says, I'm enjoying the show. How do you deal with a spouse who tends to be negative towards one child and favors the other? Yet they will not listen and they will not go for therapy.
Well, that's a tough one. It's quite a tough one. I think it will be important to look at what history has there been, because I don't think this parent woke up one day and just started being negative to this child. So what history is there? Is it that maybe this is a stepchild, because we see that in blended families where you have the parent favoring their own biological child as compared to a stepchild? Or is it that maybe the parent tends to relate better with this other child who they are favoring? We've had instances where a parent feels that this child probably is more vibrant, has a similar personality to that parent, and therefore they favor them more. So I think it's about having candid conversations in the home. Much as it's difficult and maybe the parent doesn't want to go for counseling, counseling can always begin from home. And if it's not working, then try and maybe involve a third party who might be able to be more neutral and see the situation from an overall view rather than just from internally, and also have the child express what they're feeling, because I want to believe that the child might have expressed that they feel treated differently than this other child. So it's important for the parent to understand that this kind of behavior has long-term consequences on the child.
I've seen situations where, do you know how we name our children? First boy in most communities, you name him after the man's father, and it goes like that. And I've seen situations where the ones that are named after your parents, you love them more than the others. But sometimes for you as a parent, in your mind, you're thinking, I love all of them the same. But from the perspective of the kids, they can see it very clearly. Baba ndio anapewa kwa kila kitu. Baba ndio first priority. Baba akiomba anyimagwi. And it's because you named him after your father. But not me, because I'm named after my mom's father. And me unanitreat kama father-in-law.
And sometimes it can be very, very unconscious. And that's now where you find that some children grow up feeling like there's this concept of one child growing up as a trophy child, where they are put on a pedestal, and then there's another one who grows up feeling like the insignificant child, where of course the one who is the trophy child gets all the attention, and then there's a scapegoat, the one who is blamed for everything that does happen in that family. So we have to be very, very careful about some of these unconscious processes, because, yes, I've even seen cases where maybe you are expecting a baby boy and then a girl shows up, and you find that you basically find yourself projecting your negative energies towards this child. So for this particular person, I would say every behavior is communication.
Okay.
So this has to be coming from somewhere, just like the doctor is saying. So seek to understand where this is coming from.
Okay.
And then try to address it. If the other parent is not willing to go for therapy, look for those teachable moments and opportunities, even when you're having conversations as a couple, and try to bring this to their attention.
Okay.
This could be a damaged parent, maybe who doesn't know they are damaged, and they are damaging their children, again, without knowing that they are damaging the child. So, and maybe the reason why they are even resisting to go for therapy is not because they are bad people. It's simply because if you're coming from a background of being damaged, you have a challenge trusting people. So what do I go, because you are hurt by people, and then you're supposed to go talk to people. So you need to be able to help them address maybe the trust issues that are blocking this person from going. And how do you do that? Maybe love and a lot of unconditional support, seeking to understand where this person is coming from and helping them to address those issues. And of course, you can also involve maybe a third party to help you figure out this.
Another one here says, great session. I'm enjoying this conversation. From one of your guests has made mention you should love the children with their C's and their D's as you love the A's and the B's. What's the best advice / warning to those parents who don't cultivate positive mindset to their children, who struggle academically? Parents go to the extent of calling their children failures, bure kabisa, and parents put more attention on the ones who perform better.
What I would like to say is that, we never know what the future holds. And many times you find that this child who maybe was kind of, I would say even bullied by their parent, because when a parent is calling you bure kabisa, really they're bullying you. And you find that child works extra hard because maybe they know they do have some challenges in academics or in particular areas of life. And we don't know what the future holds. You find that child turns out to be the most successful child in that home. And it becomes very difficult for the parent to now try and start making amends with a, say, 45-year-old child who they insulted for the better part of their life. So I would really encourage parents and just caution, against, kind of looking down on children who may be having any kind of I would say, I don't call it disability, but challenge, any kind of challenge in either learning, socializing, anything, because we don't know what the future holds and what this child could actually turn out to be.
Very true.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, based on that comment, how important is the language we use, even within the home? Because there's language that can be very negative. It's just a normal conversation, but the words we choose to use. How does that affect the perception of life that we give to our children? Because they learn language from us.
First of all, it's good to appreciate that if you're a mother and you have children, your children look at you and they think you're the most important woman in their lives. If you're the father, the same. You're the most important man in the lives of this child. If you're a father and you have a daughter, your relationship with your daughter is actually supposed to be a benchmark on how future relationships with men should look like.
Yeah.
The same with you as a mother. If you have a son, they're using that as a benchmark. So the language you use is very, very important because you're teaching them what is it that they should be able to accept and what they should not be able to accept.
Yeah.
If you talk to them with kindness, with affection, and with decorum, you're telling them that it's okay, and the man you're looking for in the future should talk to you in the same way that I'm talking to you. I remember one time I was handling this case of this lady, very gifted, and she was telling me how she grew up with a mother who, while punishing her, the mother would pull her hair, spit on her, and call her Kinyangarika. So, imagine that coming from the most
Your
important,
own mother.
Your own mother. And this mother is purporting to be disciplining you. So she went ahead and went out of the country, did a master's degree in a certain course. And then while there in Europe, she applied for internship in one of the multinational organizations, and they actually took her in. When she came for the internship, the organization retained her. Why would an organization retain you? Because you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
1 year later, she was promoted. And I remember when I was having this conversation with her, she was telling me, I haven't yet signed the offer letter because I am still, listen to this, because I'm still in this condition of believing that I'm not good enough. Wow. Where is this coming from? Where is this coming from?
Yes.
The language the mother used made her grow up feeling like she's not good enough. And this is not something that traumatized her only during her childhood. It's something that is following her even as an adult.
Yeah.
The reason why she was actually even seeking help was because she was saying she's attracting broken men into her life. In her life. Why? And I was telling her, you attract who you are.
Yeah.
You feel you're not good enough, you attract not good enough people in your life.
Yes.
And I was trying now to, there's this technique called rational emotive behavior therapy, where you're trying to help this person dispute the rational from the irrational, or the irrational from the rational. So believing that you're not good enough, yet the organization you work for retained you and promoted you is a lie.
Yeah.
So you grow up believing a lie. You need to unlearn this. To parents who are listening, language is everything. How you talk to your child is like, I mean, what do you even say, Okumu, that self-esteem emanates from home. It's the way you talk to them. It's the way you look at them. It's the way you touch them. Because the way you talk to them makes them feel how they feel. Yeah.
What about if the circumstances you are in, because sometimes the environment you're growing up in, the circumstances you're growing up in, can also affect how you perceive life. You know, if you, I see this a lot with some of my friends. The excuse always is, "Mimi msewa Islands." Yeah, because that's where they grew up. So they always look like victims. Hao ndio wanyonge. Hao ndio lazima serikali wasaidie. So if you're growing up within that kind of an environment, how do you help your kids not to be weighed down by that environment and always look at life as a victim, but they can see that opportunities are out there, anything is possible?
Yes, thank you for that question. I believe it's about unlearning what you've learned in the past. And you find that these parents probably projects what they feel about, you know, it's a lot of projection, and they're projecting probably even what their parents told them. You know, even in the other question you were asking about this parent who speaks ill out to their child, it's probably because that's how they were spoken to as they were growing up. So it's something that keeps on carrying on in generations. And at some point you just have to break that cycle I would call it abuse, verbal abuse. And, it's about the parent unlearning that, you know what, I grew up in Eastlands, but I can't be a successful person. I have doctor friends who grew up in Eastlands, and, some even grew up in the slums, others were on bursaries and things like that. And it doesn't mean that because they had very difficult circumstances, they did not make it in life. It is because they chose to unlearn, and they chose to have that positive frame of mind. And they also went out seeking more knowledge and more information about how they can make their lives better. I find that parents who had very difficult childhoods, as they're going through their own personal counseling and their own personal unlearning of certain behaviors, then they make sure that they they end up overdoing it for the child, because they want the child to have very positive experiences. So they'll travel with the child everywhere, teach a child so many things. Sometimes even push the child towards a certain academic field, because they really don't want the child to go through what they went through. But again, it's about finding a balance and seeing what talents does this child have. How can I make sure that my negative upbringing and my negative thoughts are not going to affect how I'm raising my child?
Yes. Talking about that, I hosted a teenager, a young lady here with her mother. And this teenager, what she is doing is unbelievable. She's still in school, but she's in pilot school. She's part of an organization, training up as a leader. I mean, she has so many things she has achieved. I think she was about 15. And I'm talking to her, in fact, several times in that interview, I asked her, are you sure you're 15? Because her self-confidence is just on another level. The way she's articulating herself, I mean, she believes she can do anything. And after that interview, I wondered, huyu mtoto wanampatianga nini? If we can package that and give it to all our children, I think this nation will become a better place. And I wondered, what is it that we can give or tell our children or expose our children so that they grow up knowing nothing is impossible? Nothing is. That young girl believes nothing is impossible. And I'm asking, are you able to do all this and still study? She's an A student. How do you do that? I just plan myself. I'm thinking, some of us adults can't plan ourselves. How are you planning yourself at 15?
There has to be someone who has journeyed with this person to, I mean, it doesn't just happen. There must be a very intentional parent or maybe guardian or maybe caregiver behind this very functional teenager. There's this concept, Okumu, of two sons who grew up with an alcoholic dad. One became a very successful business person, and then the other one became an alcoholic, just like the father. And they were subjected to an interview just like this one. And the interviewer sought to know, why did you end up becoming the person you became, considering that you grew up in similar circumstances? And they both said, my dad was an alcoholic.
They both had the same reason, but different results.
Different results. Why? Back to your question, choice. Choice. When you're growing up, you do not choose where you grow up, but when you get to a certain age, you have to decide. You have to choose. You can't keep on using childhood traumas and childhood experiences and growing up in Eastlands or whichever part to you can't use those excuses to stick to the same place you're in. We say that if you do not heal from what hurt you or from what cut you, you will bleed on people who did not hurt you or did not cut you.
Very true.
So you have to be intentional. You have to be teachable, because unfortunately or fortunately, parental roles cannot be delegated. If this child is going to have a positive vibe, it's you to inculcate it. And you cannot give what you do not have. you have to cultivate it.
Yeah.
Get to a point where you decide that I want to break this cycle. If I was yelled at, I want to stop yelling. If I was judged, I want to be the one who brings this cycle of judging to an end. If I was looked down upon, I want to be the one who does this, breaks the cycle.
Yeah.
If I grew up in a family where there was emotional unavailability, be intentional, be available for your children, affirm them, communicate, and then teach them life skills that are going to take them to the next level. If you find that maybe the struggle is too much, then there are so many institutions that are offering life skills coaching, but still with that,
Your input is also.
Your input is very, very important, because even if they go learn these things out there and then they come back to the same dysfunctional environment, it's likely not going to add up.
Very true.
Yeah.
This one says, thank you for the show, Jemo. Some of us today, we are really trying to revive parent-child rapport because of how we were brought up.
Yeah.
With tough language amidst provision, never lacked, but language and favoritism. Hey, that one affected us. And then there's a question here. It says, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I would like to ask, does the tone of voice matter when communicating to our children? Because for me, there were times my mother would say things that were not bad, but her tone of voice would really put me down. What do you think?
Absolutely. That one, without a doubt. And it goes again to the different cultural levels, or the different levels of parenting. So you find our parents would talk to you in a very calm voice, but they're very angry with you.
Yeah.
And you have now the modern parent today who has been taught how to talk to their child in a calm manner, despite their personal feeling about a certain thing. Shouting at a child has never resulted in anything positive. In fact, if anything, you find a child who is just unable to cope even with loud sounds, unable to cope with, they have poor emotional skills because of having been shouted at continuously. So I think for the older generation, or for the parents of today who might have been talked to in a low tone, but really it meant things are horrible at home, then they have to now unlearn that and know that, you know what, when I'm talking to my child, I'll always speak in a calm tone, despite how angry I may be at something that they have done, and explain to them. And then, of course, different parents have different ways of disciplining, so that even when the child is being disciplined, they know that it's not out of hatred or out of favoritism. It is because of what they have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we shield our children from all the negative vibe that's all around us? Because they don't live in a capsule. They live in a world where they will go to school, they will interact with media, they will interact with different kinds of people. So as a parent, what if I feel like, as much as I'm trying to teach them something, when they're out there, it's like what I taught them becomes undone. How do I find a balance in all this?
Surprisingly, you find that children have tremendous capacity to understand things if you explain to them in a language that they can be able to understand.
Okay.
One of the things that I've found very effective is having your own set of values and standards that you operate by. And you can say, we the Okumus, we the Josephs, we the dogs, there are things we don't do, there are things we can't do. If you consistently hammer those things to your children, and start early, because one of the things that we do is that we start these conversations a bit late.
Yeah.
We start conversations about sexuality when they are teenagers, yet actually studies have shown that sexuality actually starts while the child is still in the womb.
Wow.
There are studies that have shown that actually a boy is capable of having a penis erection while still in the mother's womb.
Wow.
It's not a new concept.
Yeah.
So start these things early. So when this child, who is Okumus and who is Joseph's, goes to this place where they are doing things that are against what they do, because they are Okumus and they are Josephs, they will say, and they'll be actually emphatic enough to say, we the Josephs,
We don't do that.
we the Okumus.
Yes.
We don't do
We
that.
don't want that program.
We don't want that program.
Yeah.
We don't do these things. But it has to be something that you inculcate over the years. What are we saying? We are products of our socialization.
Yeah.
Why we are even stuck with some traumas is because these are things we picked over a period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine if in the place of the traumas, there were positive things that we picked. These are things that are going to define us even as we become adults in the future. So inculcate these things, adopt them, and look for teachable moments. You know, when you're watching a program and there's a kissing scene, don't switch off the telly. Use that to engage your children and ask them, what do you think? You know, what do you see? Is this right? And then, because they know stuff, they know things. So the most important thing is seeking to correct the information that they do have. Yeah.
Unfortunately, my time is up. My producer is getting loud. Her tone of voice in my ear. I don't like your tone of voice in my ear, my producer. I'm just joking. Doc, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Wazazi, I hope you've learned something in our conversation this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of Parenting Tuesday. Until next week, when we tackle something else on the aspect of personal development for our children. May the Lord bless you.
Thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.